You're listening to WTMFI 67.42 FM Chicago.
Good evening, all you weird and wonderful beings, and welcome to WTMFI 67.42 FM Chicago. This is TJ Fanpool, aka Turbo TJ, reporting to you live on TikTok. Tonight, WTMFI is your resource for Star Wars Facts of the Day weekly review. During the week, we bring you a Star Wars fact Monday through Friday. Then on Sunday, we do a live review of all of the facts, bringing you all the information we have researched from StarWars.com and Wikipedia.com. I hope you'll stick with us through this show and take part in the chat at the end. Now, a little bit about your host, me! I'm a diehard Star Wars fan, but not just the movies of the original trilogy. I have been following Star Wars since I was a kid, starting with the original trilogy, but I didn't lose that interest at the end. My passion for Star Wars made it part of my whole self, and I fueled that with books, comics, and reading that would expand my knowledge and lore of the Star Wars universe. Am I an expert on all of Star Wars? No. Am I as expert on any type of Star Wars? Sure. As much as any great fan is a fan of Star Wars, I am that kind of a fan, to the point where I decided to take part in Star Wars Facts of the Day and do it Monday through Friday and a special live review at the end of the week. So before we get into the facts, little announcement. I have expanded Star Wars Facts of the Day a little bit more by teaming up with Abby of the Dark Side to create We Love All Star Wars, which is our Reddit page that we currently have active online. It is currently available through Reddit. You can actually look it up, We Love All Star Wars, and we're actually working to expand beyond that. But right now, we just got a few started on that, so we will eventually have a fully expanded and comprehensive Reddit going of Star Wars. We decided to start this up because both Abby and I have been rejected by a bunch of different Star Wars groups, mainly because of a lot of toxic fans, and we wanted to have a place where we could express our love of Star Wars regardless of our interest in the expansion, the canon, and all the stuff involved, so that way we could all have a place in. Yes, Obi-Wan, thank you for joining We All Love Star Wars, and I hope more people will get to join, and we'll be able to be freely have discussions on there with limited toxic involvement. So now let's get started in moving through all the facts. Now, I do want to point out that I am planning on expanding a few more things into Star Wars Facts of the Day. I'm working on a few concepts, and one of them specifically is was inspired by Abby of the Dark Side. She had originally suggested us doing a trivia game, and I am currently working on expanding to that. And we love all Star Wars is part of that. So the more people we get involved with the Reddit page as well as TikTok, the larger we can expand the audience, and we will be able to have a live trivia contest. The trivia contest will most likely just involve the facts of the day that I've been covering since February. So the more facts I put out, that will pretty much be the preliminary of the trivia contest. I'm still working on the concepts of that, but hopefully we will get to that point. Now, on to the facts of the day. Star Wars Fact of the Day. Jajaric, known as Holochess, is a two-player game in which holographic creatures battle each other on a holochess table. A variant of ancient Jajek commonly played on starships throughout the galaxy. A great way to pass time on long hyperspace trips, the game pieces in Jajaric were creatures both real and mythological, and a successful move would result in one monster decisively beating another in holo animated combat. At the beginning of the game, both players arrange 4 pieces each, with pieces on the second, third, fourth, and fifth spaces of their respective half boards. There existed a version on where there were not 8 but 10 pieces on the board. However, there existed a number of pieces from which the players could choose their 4 monsters, all of which were full-color holographic projections of creatures both real and mythological from across the galaxy. Available pieces included Guruk, Grimtash the Moltrek, Hojix, the Krydet Strider, the Kor Slug, the Maltrin Straldrip, the Moltruk, the Nigok, the Bulbus, and the Scrimp, and the Kathrath. Non-holographic versions of Jajaric used physical pieces and a set of dice that also existed. Though Dejarik is a friendly game played by droids, humans, clones, and aliens alike, Wookiees were particularly notorious for becoming rather upset when losing a match. So, Dejarik, for those of you who are not familiar, those are very hard names. I'm pretty sure I butchered a few of them. You can actually look up the actual characters, and as you can see on screen, I actually got a picture of them. So, was one of the scenes from the original Star Wars movie where Chewbacca, 3PO, and R2-D2 were actually playing the game, and this is actually an interesting game. And I've actually looked it up. It does have variances of like chess and stuff like that, where you have to strategically move each character, and they all have special abilities as well, similar to that of regular chess, where the knight has special moves, the king and the queen have special moves, the pawns and the rooks and the bishops, they all have different moves and strengths and abilities. So do these. I like to compare Dejarik to almost like a variation of chess meets Warhammer 40K, and the only thing I could think of is just Starship Troopers. So you basically have to go with that concept where these are massive monsters and stuff like that. And I'm not going to reveal anything specific, but if you have gone to see Mandalorian and Grogu, you will have a nice surprise. So I'm not going to go into details about that, and I'm just going to try not to spoil it, but there's a lot about Dejarik that has to do with Mandalorian and Grogu, which was part of the reason why I actually covered it this week. And most of the facts that I actually covered this week and probably going into next week are going to tie into Mandalorian and Grogu. I'm not going to reveal all the information, but it's definitely cool stuff to check out. Alphabet, welcome in. So moving on to the next fact of the day. Nal Hutta, or Hutta, is a ringed planet controlled by the Hutts, a haven for criminal activity far from the galactic authorities. Its atmosphere of greasy rain created a fetid sauna in which Hutts are comfortable. Nal Hutta is a major haven for both the government-aligned Hutt clan and the criminal elements of the galaxy. Located far from galactic authorities. Located deep within Hutt space of the galaxy, that was the homeworld of the Hutt species and headquarters of the Grand Hutt Council. Maintained by thick, swampy rain that fell almost perpetually, Nal Hutta is a hotbed for life, and its environment was fairly represented by the sentient Hutt species that inhabited the world. The influence the Hutts made the world an important location. The planet's surface is covered with numerous bogs. With what little solid land there was claimed by the Hutts and used to support their homes. Hutt cities were built on what little firm land there is, including the sprawling spaceport market of Bilbosa. A number of floating homes also dot the bayous. The Hutts built only a handful of spaceports on the surface of Nal Hutta in order to connect their towns, settlements, and palaces, as the planet received few visitors due to the most business with off-worlders being conducted on the planet's largest moon, Nar Shaddaa. Visitors traverse the bogs on repulsor flatboats, risking the attention of dragon snakes and other dangerous creatures. So I always thought that Nal Hutta was one of the most interesting planets. And this is one of the few things that you get in Star Wars is these very thickly vegetated planets. Like, for example, you have Endor's moon, which is a highly forested planet. You have Kashyyyk with the Wookiees, which is a very forested planet. And then you have Nal Hutta, which is also a swampy but fertile planet. And these are planets that are teeming with life. Another example of this is Dagobah, where we are introduced to Yoda in Empire Strikes Back. Fairly swampy planet. Also a thick atmosphere. Now, you could go into detail about the reason why these planets exist. Jesse, welcome in. Is because of all the different species that exist on these planets. As an aspect of the Force, you can look at these planets as very major hotbeds of life for the galaxy. And it's interesting the different species that have formed on each of these planets. Like for Nal Hutta, it's obviously the Hutts was the dominant species. On Endor, Jade, welcome in. It was the Ewoks. On Kashyyyk, it was the Wookiees are the dominant species. On a planet like Dagobah, there doesn't seem to be a primary species that dominates, which I'm interested to find out. Is that's one of the planets that I eventually will do more research on. Is that they haven't gone into a lot of research on that, because that's the thing is Dagobah. A lot of people remember Dagobah because that's where Yoda had gone to, but Yoda actually wasn't from Dagobah. That wasn't even his home planet. We still don't know where Yoda's species comes from, which is one of the interesting things about Grogu. He is the only other species member of the same species as Yoda and Yaddle. Yaddle was another Jedi that was part of Yoda's species. She was a younger Jedi, younger than Yoda, but she was, as far as I remember, she was a master. If you want to check out Tales of the Jedi on Disney Plus, Yaddle is actually featured in the episodes that focus on Count Dooku. So I would highly recommend checking her out because she is actually from Yoda's planet. She is another of his species. So that's 3 that we've had encounters with that has to do with that species. And it makes it interesting that the Hutts came from this planet, and you see the different aspects about the Hutts. They, one, don't have legs. Their bodies are very bulbous, but they also move in almost not quite a slug, but almost a reptilian way of moving. And they're not slow either. So that would imply that there's more to the Hutts than just, you know, the lazy about that we see, like Jabba the Hutt and the twins that we saw in the Mandalorian series, which you'll learn a little bit more about that if you go and see Mandalorian Grogu. For those of you that have not seen the movie yet, you should definitely go check it out. There's some really good scenes that have to do with that. And the majority of the facts that I've been doing from last week to this week specifically has to do with not only the Mandalorian series, but also Mandalorian Grogu. So I'm not revealing any of the things that happen in the movie, but I am giving some hints of some of the stuff that is going to take part in that, which is part of the reason why I mentioned Nal Hutta. I'm not going to say why. That's for you to find out. So if you want to look this up on your own, the information is available through wikipedia.com and starwars.com. So you're more than welcome to look this up on your own. There's a lot more information that's available about these facts. I only cover like a minimum amount because I don't want to, have a long thing that everybody has to read. I've gone into some of that and a lot of people weren't big fans of it, but I like to go in and give a basis amount of information so people can look this up on their own if they have an interest in it. Because the Hutt species is definitely one of the more interesting species. We learn a lot about them and the planet Nal Hutta in the Clone Wars series with the Hutt Council and Zero the Hutt and his involvement in the first Clone Wars movie, which was the kidnapping of Jabba's son. Zero was the one who was directly responsible for that, and he actually worked with Count Dooku and the Separatists to actually accomplish that. So it's really interesting that he was the one that was involved with that. And I always thought Zero was one of the funnier members of the Hutt's family. So I always like going back and watching his episodes on Clone Wars because honestly, I just think his character was really funny. Not for anything to say against him or anything like that, but I just thought it was really an interesting character. As you've got this kind of, because when you first encounter Jabba the Hutt in Return of the Jedi, and thankfully because of the remastered versions where you get to see Jabba finally in the first one, A New Hope, you really get an aspect about Jabba not being just some lazy rollabout, that he actually is a powerful being. And you have to think to yourself, okay, this guy's just a giant slug. What the heck did he do that he was able to accomplish and build such a gigantic organization? Which really brings an aspect to the Hutts that makes you wonder, these guys, they're just not, lazy slugs or something like that. There's more going on here. And considering they are the dominant species on Nal Hutta, that they advance technology and their society to the point that they are actually the dominant species on the planet, brings up a really interesting concept of what they're actually capable of. So I always thought that was interesting. So definitely look this up and check this information out because there's so much more there that I didn't get a chance to cover. Okay, moving on to the next fact of the day. Star Wars fact of the day. Adelphi Rangers is a New Republic starfighter squadron stationed on the outer rim world of Adelphi. Garrisoned at Adelphi Base, Captain Carson Teva is an officer in the squadron of experienced combat veterans. Other members of the squadron include Lieutenant Reed, Trapper Wolf, Sash Ketter, Jib Dodger, and Garazeb Zeb Aurelios from the days of the Rebel Alliance. The Adelphi Rangers utilize T-65B X-Wing starfighters, BTL A-4 Y-Wing assault starfighter bombers, B-Wings, U-Wings, and several support craft. Adelphi Base is supported by mechanics, droids, and other pilots identified by both blue and orange flight suits. This outpost reports to the New Republic Military Council, though often resorts to working with local planetary marshals and militia, bounty hunters, and mercenaries to mitigate pirate threats and former Imperial warlords. Now, this is something that I thought was the coolest thing about what happened with the New Republic after Return of the Jedi. And this is something that I'm really glad that Filoni and Favreau actually delved into, is that obviously the New Republic had to expand out and cover a lot of different places. Because if you ever see a map of the Star Wars galaxy, it is massive. Granted, it's the ability to travel across the galaxy at light speed makes it basically easy for a lot of vehicles to travel long distance. But the thing is, and this is interesting, is the communications between planetary stations, depending upon where a location is and what the planetary makeup is of the galaxy, decides on how quickly police forces and military units can respond to offensive or attacks on civilian populations. So you got a little bit of a sign of this when you watched The Mandalorian, as well as when you watched the Clone Wars. See, back during the time before, during the Old Republic, if there was a report about some kind of violation going on, Vivigoon, welcome in. Vivigoon, sorry. You basically had to send a message to either the Jedi or to the Republic to request assistance on their planet. Now, at the time, the Jedi were basically the space marshals. They were the ones who went around to the planets and broke up any kind of disagreements, but also tried to make peace with the guys to figure things out. Now, usually most planets had their own security forces, or they would rely on the Republic to supply security forces so that they could actually, prevent crimes and stuff like that on their planet, as well as maintain maintenance of the government that was in place. Now, a lot of planets like the Twi'leks and the Wookiees, they pretty much handled their own security and their own placement. But other planets, especially commerce planets where there was a lot of pirates or smugglers or criminal organizations, the Republic would have to send in members of the Jedi or other security forces. Excuse me. And you really get a feel for this during the Clone Wars, because obviously the Separatists are now trying to take over planets. Some planets are being taken over peacefully. Some are joining the Separatists. Others are being invaded by the Separatists. And of course, this was all the plan of Emperor Palpatine, was to cause chaos throughout the galaxy. Big Boss, welcome in. And this is one of the things that people need to remember about this, is that before the Clone Wars, the Jedi pretty much numerated enough that they could handle the majority of the galaxy. But most planets did have their own security forces. Glad to see that you watched the series. So the interesting thing beyond the Clone Wars, after that, when the war finally ended, the clones pretty much stayed on a lot of planets or were stationed at locations where insurgents might occur. And this was the beginning of the Empire's domination of the galaxy. And it was a really interesting concept that the Empire was in a position to station garrisons across the galaxy, especially on planets that they thought they would receive issue from. And when it became a fact of matter that a lot of planets planned on revolting, and you see a little bit of this in Solo and in Bad Batch and a bunch of others, where, especially when you're watching Obi-Wan Kenobi. Henry, welcome in. That there is a lot going on where the Empire is basically dominating other planets. Henry, yes, you can definitely ask questions once we get to the end. Let me get through the facts, and then we can actually cover something like that. So, after the Civil War, and obviously the Empire was spread out and they were then covered on warlords, the New Republic then had to send out operation bases so that way planets could request assistance. And a Delphi squadron is one of those examples. And they really did a great job in making it out that these were made up of a lot of members of the former rebellion. Like a lot of the pilots, which a lot of these saw action during the rebellion for the Battle of Endor, the Battle of Hoth, and it's really interesting. The one aspect that we haven't got covered just yet was the actual suppression of Coruscant and all that. We still haven't gotten all the information on that. And we're hoping to get, I know that Star Wars Squadrons and some of Battlefront 2 actually covered a lot of the information about these battles. But some of it, I'm still checking around to confirm what's canon, what isn't, because Filoni and a lot of the guys who had said about what's canon, what's not, it's primarily the TV series, the movies, and that kind of stuff. So there's a lot of stuff that was covered that we don't know if it's canon just yet. Mighty Ducks, welcome in. And we're still trying to, and that's information is still unconfirmed. But I like to think that the stuff like Battlefront 2, Squadrons, and Fallen Order are all part of the Star Wars canon, expanded canon. But a lot of stuff has eventually gotten retconned. Like the Ahsoka book that came out was considered canon until it got retconned, and the Kanan Jarrus series of Rebels that was done by Marvel Comics, that got retconned because of the story in Bad Batch. So there's a lot of stuff that we don't know for sure is if it's, canon or non-canon. And it's still kind of up in the air, especially with a lot of this new stuff. But with a Delphi Squadron, I'm hoping that we might get like maybe a sequel or something like that. There's a lot of additional games that are coming out that are filling in a lot of the blanks and stuff like that. But I really like the way a Delphi Squadron was brought up in The Mandalorian, that you actually did find out, New England Clam Chowder, welcome in, that there was a New Republic presence out in the Outer Rim, and a Delphi Squadron was nicely advertised as that. And it was unfortunate that we didn't see them more in action. We mostly saw them as like a police force, but not really in action. So that's primarily the reason why I really enjoyed the movie Mandalorian and Grogu, because we get a little bit of a sight of a Delphi Squadron with some of the characters, which if you saw the trailer, you saw that a Delphi Squadron actually shows Zeb from Rebels. He's actually a member of the squadron. You saw that in Mandalorian. And here on your screen, you see Carson Teva, who is a regular character in the Mandalorian series. And he actually showed up in Ahsoka as well under General Syndulla. And I really like his character as kind of a bridge character between multiple series. So that way we actually have an overall aspect, and which was really great for Mandalorian Grogu, that we actually have a Delphi Squadron as a source that we can actually bring in from the Mandalorian series. And a key factor that a lot of fans have noticed this, but the characters that are part of a Delphi Squadron are a lot of the directors from the Mandalorian series. You can actually see here, the character right there with the hat, that's Dave Filoni, and he's actually playing one of the characters. And there was actually a couple scenes in the Mandalorian series where he is actually on screen and has speaking parts. One of the ones that I remember is where he and Carson Teva in their X-Wings are actually chasing down Mando in his in the Razor Crest on that ice planet, where he eventually crashes and he almost gets eaten by the spider, and then they end up rescuing him. But it's an interesting concept there, that a Delphi Squadron is kind of a police force, but they're also a defensive group that is in place to counteract any Imperial incursions. And though, unfortunately, we don't actually see them in action against the Empire, I have a feeling we're going to see a little bit more of a Delphi Squadron, hopefully in the Ahsoka series, but we might see more of them beyond that, depending upon if we get any more of the Mandalorian, which last I heard, there's a possibility of another season of Mandalorian. I think it could be tied up to the way, Mandalorian and Grogu goes. So we'll see how that goes. Angel of Death, welcome in. So, moving on to the next fact of the day. Embo, Star Wars fact of the day. Embo was a Kuzo male bounty hunter. A hunter of few words, Embo was quick to disable his target, be it by a shot from his bowcaster or a decisive blow from his hat, which is hurled at an adversary with deadly accuracy. The hat also doubled as a shield when Kuzo directly charged his target head first. A freelance hunter born on the planet Fatarog, Embo worked with his faithful Anuba, Merrick. Even as a capable solo hunter, he worked with several different groups throughout the Clone Wars. Embo was known to work as part of Sugi's band of bounty hunters in particular. Embo also worked with Cad Bane, Boba Fett, and faced opponents like Hondo Ohnaka, Asajj Ventress, Maul, and Savage Opress. Embo and Merrick have regularly worked as freelance hunter with the Hutt Syndicate. Now, I thought this was... Oh, thanks for stopping in, Angel. I appreciate it. And I really thought this character was interesting. If you haven't had a chance to check out Embo, he's in several episodes of the Clone Wars animated series. He makes appearances not only as just a bounty hunter, but he also comes in as a freelance mercenary and helps defend several people from the Separatists. And he takes part in actual action against the Separatists, but he also works against other members of certain teams. And we actually see him work with Boba Fett and Cad Bane, and he actually fights Hondo Ohnaka and his pirate group. He doesn't directly go into conflict against Ventress, but he is associated with a group that actually has to go up against her. And it's some really interesting story about that. You got to go. Oh, thanks for coming in, Angel. It's okay. You got to go. Thanks for stopping in. I appreciate it. So, in any case, the really interesting thing about him is that he doesn't have a lot of lines, but his character is... So, in any case, the really interesting thing about him is that he doesn't have a lot of lines, but his character is very interesting, and he's one of the few characters that we got from Clone Wars that actually survived the Clone Wars, but he also is very similar to the aspect of Boba Fett, where he's continued to make a name for himself as a mercenary and a bounty hunter. And I just thought his character was really cool. So if you get a chance to check out those episodes, I just thought he was a really cool character. And I wanted to include him because the fact that he's one of the few that actually partners up with a pet or like another hunter like himself, which you don't see that very often. I mean, you have Hondo Ohnaka. He always has the Kawaki monkey lizards that he has around, but we don't see them that much. I mean, when we saw Hondo in Rebels, he didn't actually have one with him. So it depends, I guess, on the organization he's with at the time. So, but I always find it interesting when you have a Star Wars character that actually has a pet or a companion that travels with them. I always think that's interesting. I mean, in Star Wars Outlaws, we have the main character who has a partner, and you've got in Fallen Order, you've got the main character who has a droid. And it's always interesting for me that you have those kinds of characters, that they have a companion that comes along with them and is a major assistance in their efforts. And I just always thought that was interesting. So I wanted to include him primarily for that, because his character in and of itself is really interesting. And one of my favorite things about him was that his hat is so versatile. I mean, he can use it as a shield against blasters. He was using it as kind of a snowboard in one episode where he was chasing down, I think it was Padme and Anakin on a planet. And then he actually uses it as a weapon for almost like kind of like Captain America's shield, bouncing around things, which I think, if I remember for the information, I think it is made of Durasteel, which is the same as used on metals of ships. So it's a really interesting character just in of itself. So I just really wanted to include him because he's just really interesting, and his action sequences are actually really cool. So if you get a chance to check him out, he's really cool. Okay, moving on to the next fact. Star Wars fact of the day. The ST-70M-11 111 Razor Crest series assault ship is a class of gunship manufactured by the Corellian Engineering Corporation. It's predated the Galactic Empire when they were used for local military patrols. The ST-70 Razor Crest assault ship has a single pilot seat and could hold at least 4 passengers. 2 MK laser cannons were equipped along with military-grade deflector shields. The ST-70s had 2 engines and a hyperdrive. These particular ships were preferred by smugglers, bounty hunters, and mercenaries due to them not having an Imperial-era transponder, making the ships ghosts. One starship of this class was similarly named Razor Crest, was used by the Mandalorian bounty hunter Din Djarin during the New Republic era. Djarin had the Razor Crest engines modified for speed and evasive abilities, making it able to outrun and engage starfighters, which would normally overtake models of this type. Now, of course, the reason why I wanted to include this was because of the Mandalorian and Mandalorian and Grogu, because the Razor Crest is one of the ships that's primarily featured. But the interesting thing about the Razor Crest is that it's actually used a lot in Star Wars. It makes an appearance in Rise of Skywalker. It's, of course, brought in as the major ship of the Mandalorian series. We ended up losing it in the second season. But then, of course, we see in the trailer for Mandalorian Grogu, it shows up again. So all the more reason for you to definitely go check out the movie at some point. If you want to wait for it to come out on Disney Plus, absolutely, I recommend that. But you should definitely, me personally, I saw it in the theater. It was absolutely amazing. So I recommend going to see it because most movies of Star Wars, they're designed specifically to be seen in the theater. I mean, me personally, I think they should put the entire Mandalorian series in movie form and show it on the big screen, because I would pay money to go in and see it on a big screen like that. That's just me, but I would definitely go see it. But seeing the Razor Crest in action is actually, for me, a personal delight, because even though it's a transport ship, it was specifically designed as a combat vessel for going between local militias on other planets in the Star Wars galaxy. So I always thought that was interesting. And it's really cool to actually see these kinds of ships and how they're designed to actually support local residents and the communities that exist in Star Wars. And it's something that we didn't really get a lot of in the movies, but of course the movies had their own stories that they were telling. But as Star Wars has expanded, especially in novels and stuff like that, you got a lot of different ship types and stuff like that were available. I mean, me personally, when I was reading in the EU, and there were actually books that were published with all the different designs of the ships that were actually featured in the books. So you finally get to see what they looked like. And a lot of the toys and figures that came out actually showed what the ships looks like. And some of it was really cool. And the designs were always unique and kind of symmetric, but not exactly. And the Razor Crest is just one of those vehicles that actually looks really cool. And the concept behind it is very interesting, of a ship that's designed to not only be for military use, but could also be used for cargo. And I just thought the design of this is really interesting. And the fact that this is one of those kinds of ships that could be modified to be not only faster, but more maneuverable and able to be used not only for transports, but also for smuggling, bounty hunting. I mean, it shows a versatility to Star Wars vessels that they don't have to just be for one purpose. They could be used for multiple things. And I always found that super interesting for me. So that's the reason why I wanted to include this. Okay, that wraps up the facts for this week. Thanks to everybody that stayed on for this long. I'm going to open up the floor to any questions that anybody might have. So if you have a question or something that you want to chat about, go ahead and start going up about it. So the floor is, I'm basically opening this up to everybody. So I want to reinstate again that if you enjoyed this, I'd appreciate likes, which I've gotten 18,000. Thank you so much. If you want to offer any gifts to support me, I really appreciate that as well. Shares are always appreciated. If you want to give me a follow, that's also wonderful. Anything you could do to support my page, I really appreciate it, because I like doing this kind of thing. Star Wars is one of my favorite fandoms, and I love talking about it. I love chatting with other people. And like I said before, Abby of the Dark Side and I have a Reddit that is now started up. We love all Star Wars. If you want to join up with this, shoot me a DM. Or let me know if you're interested in it on one of the videos that I'm covering. I am going to be doing a video actually talking about this in the near future. So if you definitely want to take part in this, we have made it a open source for a lot of people to be able to talk and chat about Star Wars and be able to feel freely. Deadpool, welcome in. To feel free to be able to chat about every aspect of Star Wars. You know, stuff that they love, stuff that they really like about Star Wars, stuff that they hate about Star Wars. You know, you're allowed to feel free to say that. And unfortunately, a lot of chat rooms, hey, welcome in, that you get a lot of toxic fans and fanboys when you go to some of the rooms. Like me personally, I've had a problem on some Facebook groups and stuff like that give negative comments and stuff like that. If you express an opinion about something, if you heard of interesting fact or something that you want to chat about, you get a lot of negative comments or something like that. Or if you bring up about something from the expanded universe or something that's changed in canon, the fanboys can get on you about that. Abby and I want to create a place where you could express your love of Star Wars without fear of getting negative comments. And that's what We Love All Star Wars is about. It's a Reddit that's designed specifically for fans that want to chat about Star Wars and don't want to have to worry about the toxic fans coming in and ripping someone to pieces because of it. So for any of you that really enjoy chatting about Star Wars and want to chat with me or Abby about information about that, you can follow the link. I've got it loaded on the most recent Facts of the Day trailer. So if you want to actually chat on there, We Love All Star Wars, the link is actually listed there. Or if you just want to comment on the video and let me know that you want the link, I will actually post it. I think I actually posted it in the comments. But if you didn't get that, I can actually post it here if you want. So let me know if you're interested in that kind of thing, because I do have the page actually right here. Give me 1 second. Let me actually type that in so that way I actually have it here. So I try to make sure I actually have it so it's available. So let me actually post it up here. So this is the Reddit right here. I actually loaded up one of the facts of the day from this past week. So you can actually go on the site and actually check them out. And again, this is a location for everybody to chat on it if you're interested. So, oh, shoot, I just took it away. Let me switch that back again. Let me refresh that. Okay, so let me copy that and let me post this in the chat here. So if you're interested in coming in and chatting with us, you can feel free to post anything here. I am one of the moderators on there, so if somebody ends up posting something, you could always tag me or mention me in the comments and I will remove it. So, but if you just are looking for a place that you want to chat about Star Wars and stuff like that, it's definitely an option for that. I am on Reddit as well as Discord, so I haven't made my Discord available, but if you want to shoot a message to me through Discord or something like that, you can. But yeah, if anybody has any questions, I know Henry, the Dino Boy, you had a question. Oh, there. Sorry, I didn't see it there. What is the Project Blackwing and how terrifying is it? That is a great question. I don't know about that one. Let me actually do a quick check here. I've actually got StarWars.com open here. Project Blackwing. Let's see here. Loading up here. Okay, there's nothing on StarWars.com. Let me go on Wikipedia.com and see if I can find something here. I gotta wait for it to... Okay, let's see here. Project Blackwing. Let's see. Project Blackwing. Here we go. Okay. Oh, interesting. Oh, okay. So this is some. Okay, so this might be. I'm guessing this is somehow connected. Yeah. So this is something that's brought up in from Ahsoka. Okay, so I will definitely add this to my facts of the day. I don't know if I'll do it this week, but I will definitely do it in a future one. Let me actually put that into my notes. I actually have a notes thing that I do for possible facts of the day. So let me get that on here. So let's see. Project Blackwing. So I'm guessing the information that's, since unfortunately it's not covered on StarWars.com, I'm guessing a lot of this is based on material that's either from the comics or maybe a novel or something like that. So I don't know how much I'm going to actually... I usually like to post facts that are on both StarWars.com and Wikipedia.com. If they're only on one or the other, I don't usually cover it because there's a chance it could become non-canon. So I try to limit the facts that I'm able to. But I do like this one because it does deal with the concept of what that was brought up in Ahsoka of the stormtroopers that got back up after they were shot. Which, from the look of it, I believe that was somehow connected to the power of the Night Sisters, which has to do a lot with resurrection. And the magic of the Night Sisters is one of the more interesting aspects about Star Wars because the Night Sisters' power seems to be associated with the Force, but it's a more, I almost want to say, almost like how magic is, there's multiple different types of magic. There's black magic, there's white magic, and then there's kind of necromancy magic, which kind of falls in the goes in that gray line. So I'm wondering if that's an aspect of the Night Sisters that might be an aspect of the Force that is desirable to the dark side but feared and accepted by the light side. So there's a concept there that I have always wondered if we're going to find out more information, which has got me really excited for Ahsoka Season 2, because I'm hoping we're going to find out more about, the Night Sisters and their species and where they come from and where their power comes from. If it's an aspect of the Force, if it's something beyond that, is it tied to the trilogy of Mortis? So, I'm interested in, where that's going and where that's coming from. So I will definitely do some more research with Project Blackwing because I like that concept. So I will definitely look into that and see what's going on with that. I'm hoping we will find out more information, but it does sound both terrifying but cool because it basically is a variant of Star Wars zombies. Now, I'm wondering if we're going to have something that comes from this and how things tie together with that, because this is an interesting concept of, they were able to resurrect stormtroopers and they were kind of nasty looking. So it makes you wonder of some of the concepts and stuff that was brought up in Fallen Jedi or Fallen Order, where he goes onto Dathomir and the Night Sisters could become resurrected, which I'm not gonna say for sure, but just me personally, I get the feeling like Asajj Ventress is gonna come involved, and we already know that she survived the Clone Wars and she showed up in Bad Batch, and then we got some additional stuff of her from Tales of the Underworld. So I kind of think we're going to get more with the Night Sisters and hopefully Asajj Ventress, and I'm hoping we get a little bit more. Personally, I hope we get a resurgence of the Night Sisters, because that's the thing, is that the Night Sisters are returning to Dathomir. I'm hoping for a bunch of things, that when we get back to Dathomir, that they're finally, Dathomir is going to move full into live action, where we're finally going to get to see the Rancors of Dathomir and, the species that of the Night Sisters that currently exists. And I'm really hoping for a lot more detail about Dathomir and what happens on that planet, because most of the stuff that we've gotten from Dathomir, it's a very sparse planet with life and stuff on it. So it makes you wonder, okay, where are the Rancors? That was my one thing that I was a little disappointed in the Clone Wars, that we did not get enough of Rancors when we saw Dathomir for the first time in Clone Wars. And the Night Sisters were supposed to be the ones that actually trained and rode the Rancors on Dathomir. So I keep thinking to myself, when are we finally going to get that? And now that we already had Boba Fett, the Book of Boba Fett mentions the Night Sisters and the Rancors, riding them, and that they're social creatures. And I'm thinking to myself, are we getting set up for something here when Dathomir comes up in Ahsoka Season 2? So I'm not predicting anything, but I really hope we get something, because I've been hooked on Rancors ever since I read The Courtship of Princess Leia for EU, which, if you have not read this book, it is no longer canon, it's part of Legends, but it is in the EU. It is about the whole relationship and the marriage that led up to with Han and Leia, and the introduction to the Night Sisters, and a lot of information about the Night Sisters, and the fact that they rode Rancors. That whole concept came from Courtship of Princess Leia. So if you have a chance and you want to read something that includes the Night Sisters and brings them into the Star Wars universe, definitely pick up Courtship of Princess Leia. It is a great read. All of the primary characters are in it. I highly recommend it because it is so good. and just the whole there's a love connection, romance triangle between Leia and Han and the prince of another powerful organization that's in the Star Wars universe, which has not been brought into the current canon, but I'm hoping at some point in time they will be. So I highly recommend checking it out because it's a really great read. And again, it's not canon. So if you're only interested in reading canon stuff, then don't worry about it. But if you're looking for something fun to read that has to do with Star Wars, I highly recommend it. It's a great book. Again, Courtship of Princess Leia. Definitely check it out. Jade, welcome in. So thanks for Henry. Thanks for posting up that question about Project Blackwing. I am definitely going to look into that some more. I want to actually go right now. It doesn't have anything about it on StarWars.com, but I will definitely do some more research and find out more about it. It does link to a couple of other projects that it's connected to. It does mention Star Wars Commander and Disney Interactive. And of course, it mentions it from, let's see, it looks like Rogue One, the Ultimate Visual Guide. Everything You Need to Know, Dawn of Rebellion, Imperial Troopers. So there's a lot of stuff there. Let's see. Oh, that's for a magazine. So I don't think that's the same thing. But I will definitely continue researching this and see what I can find. So as of right now, there's limited information. There's no information about it on StarWars.com. It's only on Wikipedia. So I will definitely look it up. Can we talk about the Dark Dimension Vader? When you say Dark Dimension Vader, are you talking about from Lego, or are you talking about another project from Marvel Comics or from Dark Horse? Just give me a little clarification on that, just so I know what I'm referencing. Because there was an expanded universe version of Darth Vader. So, okay, from the comics. Is it from Dark Horse or is it from Marvel? Because I know there's a couple different variations that are done by both Dark Horse Comics. I think Image even did something with Vader, but Marvel I know has their own run right now that's going on, which I have to say I haven't read everything that's been published by Marvel, only because after I got invested in some of the Star Wars stuff that's been published by Marvel, a lot of it has been decanonized. So I'm a little hesitant to read into a lot of it. The main one I'm reading right now is the main Star Wars storyline that's being done because it fills in the blanks between the movies. So I'm reading that just because I like, filling that in a little bit. And because so much of the stuff that I had read from the EU got decanonized and moved into Legends. So it's kind of like, I want to read some of the concept ideas, and there were subject matters that I really loved from the expanded universe that I wanted to find out what they were doing with, but they didn't bring it over. So, like for me, example, the concept of what happened to the refugees from Alderaan. That was one of the things that I absolutely loved about in the expanded universe. They went into detail about what happened to them, where they ended up. But since that all got decanonized, I was wondering to myself, well, what happened to them? Now, in the Star Wars comic book series that Marvel started doing, they do touch on that and what happened to them. And that's where we get Cara Dune's character that shows up in Mandalorian. So that's a concept that was really interesting for me. It says it's from the Star Wars comic series. Okay, so I'm trying to remember which one. Okay, give me 1 second here. Let me actually see if I can find that. I might have to do a quick one from Wikipedia.com. Let me see if I can find it. I haven't read about Dark Dimension Vader myself, so let me take a quick look and see what I can find. Dark Dimension Vader. Let's see what we get here. Oh, let's see here. Let's see. So Dark Dimension. Let's see here. Okay. Oh, I see what you're talking about. Okay, Dark Visions. Okay. So let's see what we have here. Okay, so a lot of the references are from Marvel Comics. Let me click on here to see what we get. Ooh. Oh, it took me directly to Marvel's website. Okay, let me see here. Hang on a second. It's been this word, commander, destroyer, mysterious, otherworldly power. It was the Dark Lord of a different. Oh. Some corners of the galaxy so dark and desperate that even Vader can be a knight in shining armor. First issue of a new Star Wars limited series. Okay. Interesting. Yeah, I have not read this series, so I will definitely add this to my reading list. I've got a lot of stuff on the Marvel Comics side that I've been trying to catch up on. I fell behind because, again, a lot of the stuff that I used to read became unavailable to me. And I know that Marvel has really started adding a lot of the Legends comic series like X-Wing, Dark Empire 2, and Heir to the Empire, and a bunch of the comics that were put out by Dark Horse and stuff like that. And the ones that are interesting, if you ever get a chance to check out on Marvel Comics, there was an original Star Wars series that was done way back in the 1980s that actually was supposed to be filler between the movies, but was not connected to the movies in any way, shape, or form. Marvel just kind of grabbed the concept of Star Wars and started writing their own stuff. So it's definitely interesting. Talk about it next time. I will look into it. I have to say, I am so far behind on my comic book reading that it may take me a while to actually catch up with it, because I'm still trying to catch up on. I haven't even gotten to the trial of Lando Calrissian yet in the main Star Wars series, so I am so far behind. We just got past the last thing I read was about Operation Cinder, which, if you remember from the Mandalorian series, it's mentioned in the second season, and I really thought it was one of the more darker scenes, and I was trying to figure out how the heck is the rebellion going to survive this, because it was really bad. So if you guys get a chance to look up some of the things that are connected to Operation Cinder, it's really interesting, and it's spread out across a lot of Marvel comics, but also some Dark Horse and other comic book series and a couple novels. So definitely go and check out anything that's connected with Operation Cinder. That's pretty much where I am right now in the Star Wars comics. So I'm really far behind. I haven't caught up yet with a lot. I read some of, and the other thing that I had a problem with is that a lot of my comics got lost. I had actually gone on a trip and a bunch of them got lost. I had left them, unfortunately, on a plane. So somebody out there has the majority of my collection, but I have the digital copies that I was able to get. So I read the original Darth Vader run, and I haven't caught up with, and I know I'm going to get heat from this from one of the people I follow, is I haven't caught up on Dr. Aphra and her stuff. I really want to read that because I really like the character of Black Chrysanthemum, but I am so far behind on so much of this stuff. So I really need to catch up on a lot of that. And that's what I'm working on, is trying to get to all the different Star Wars comics and stuff like that. But there's so much that has been published, and I am so far behind. And unfortunately, my work schedule, my family makes it difficult for me to get any reading time for myself. So hopefully I can actually sit down and do some reading when I have time. But unfortunately, my job requires me to do a lot of stuff on tasks, so I don't get a chance to read as much as I used to. But I do have on my reading list, there's a lot of stuff, but I will definitely add this to my list of reading. I actually gotta sign back in on. Oh wait, that's not the right one. Shoot. I have to look that up again, so I've got to get my login for that. But I will definitely add Dark Visions to my reading list, so that way I can actually read through it. I don't know if I'll be able to get the whole thing, because again, I'm still working on the Star Wars main series that started up in 2015. I am so far behind on that. I really got to catch up on that. And the really interesting thing is that we finally got the introduction to Poe Dameron's parents in that. So I really enjoyed reading that one. So I'm curious as to where they're going to go with some of those characters. And I'm still waiting. And the real reason I'm behind is that I wasn't, because they touch on a lot of stuff with Luke and his training, and they touch on the aspect of him building his own lightsaber and stuff like that. There's a lot of stuff that they touch on in that series, and it's really interesting for me, just because I like reading about some of the concepts and stuff that they encounter, and the trials that Luke goes through trying to figure out, how to become a Jedi, because a lot of this is set after A New Hope, before Empire Strikes Back, and then they had Empire Strikes Back, and then they pick up again after Empire Strikes Back, and what happens to the rebels after the Battle of Hoth, but before the Battle of Endor. And you realize that the rebellion went through a lot of issues in that time period, and the main Star Wars series covers a lot of that. But again, I have to stress about this is that officially Star Wars from Marvel is not canon. I mean, it is at the moment canon, but it could just as easily be decanonized by Disney. So I do have to stress that if you're going to read a lot of the books and stuff that are out right now, be very careful how much faith you put into it, because it could be decanonized and taken away just as easily as the expanded universe was taken away from a lot of us fans. So I do want to stress that to a lot of you, that anything that you look up, make sure you verify a lot of information between StarWars.com and Wikipedia.com. Those are the most recent and more accurate sources for the Star Wars facts, as well as canon. And me personally, I always say look up and read what you like, but always take it with a grain of salt. Don't hold it as, the end-all, be-all word of anything. I mean, me personally, I still hold on to hope that the X-Wing saga that was done by Michael A. Stackpole and Aaron Allston could still make it into the Star Wars universe at some point. Will it actually happen? I have no idea. It's been moved into Legends, and as far as I know, it's not going to make it out. But we still have had characters from the novels that have made it into Marvel, or into the main line of Star Wars. Grand Admiral Thrawn and Captain Paleon, prime examples of that. They were from the expanded universe. They got brought in. So there was a very good chance that other characters could get brought in. I mean, Asajj Ventress, who was originally part of Genndy Tartakovsky's expanded line before Revenge of the Sith. Her character got brought in to the Clone Wars series. Now, originally, she wasn't considered canon because that had been bought out by Disney. But thankfully, George Lucas actually brought Asajj Ventress into the Clone Wars movie, and that was before the acquisition of Disney. So the Clone Wars series was able to include a lot of those characters. Now, there's a lot of characters that still have not made it into Star Wars, and there's a lot of people hope that they'll make it into Innovation. Welcome in. But we don't know for sure if they will be brought in or if they're going to stay in. So that's the reason why I always recommend to people, take all the novels and the comics and stuff like that with a grain of salt. Enjoy them, but there's no guarantee that those will stay canon. I keep hoping that they will, and last time I looked up, a lot of the video games are considered canon, but not all of them are considered canon, which, in my opinion, does suck. That you have to keep piecemealing stuff together of, is this canon? Is this not canon? Will I see it in the movies? Will I see it in animation? Am I going to see it in Disney Plus? We never know. We keep hoping that the stuff is going to be made into canon and that our favorite characters and our favorite parts are going to come in. But again, it keeps changing. You almost have to think of, and this is just my way of looking at it, you have to kind of think of Star Wars canon like the Force. As the way Yoda describes it, always in motion, difficult to see, always in motion is the future. That is pretty much the way you have to look at the canon of Star Wars. It's always in fluid motion, and it's possible that we could hit a bend and it's going to change. Like a lot of people, and you could talk to on and on with toxic fans about this, how much they hated the prequels, they hated the sequels, they hate the Solo movie. There are people that absolutely despise Rogue One. I'm still flabbergasted that I still run into people that hate Rogue One. They hate Solo. They hate the Clone Wars. They hate the Clone Wars movie. They hate Ahsoka Tano. It's like, why? But again, it's not my place to judge other people for having opinions on stuff. I've been judged plenty of times just for being a Star Wars fan. I don't want to get into the amount of trauma I received during high school and college because I was a Star Wars fan. Because at that time, Star Wars hadn't, we didn't even have the prequels yet. We still had just the original trilogy, the Ewok movies, and the animated series of droids and Ewoks that came out in the 80s. That was pretty much it. And I was ridiculed for years because I was a fan of that stuff. So as much as people, go on and on about this is canon, this is not canon, everybody calm down. Because you never know when that canon is going to go away and it's going to change. And the favorite thing that you absolutely loved is not going to be part of that canon anymore. I mean, there's stuff from the video games that were fantastic stories that have vanished. Like, I was a big fan of the Rogue Squadron video game. None of that is considered canon anymore. I was a big fan of the X-Wing series, the Star Wars X-Wings video games. Those are no longer canon. The stuff that was brought up in the original Star Wars Battlefront and Battlefront 2, those are no longer canon. You know, there's a lot of these games that you can play and that you can love, and then the story changes and they're no longer accepted as canon. It happens to some of the best things in Star Wars. So just always remember to enjoy Star Wars, but remember to let it flow. Don't try to constrict it. Let the river flow as it is. Let the Force flow, because that's the only way you're ever going to be happy, is if you take everything with a grain of salt. Am I mad at the whole situation that happened between Lucasfilm and Disney becoming part of it and taking over Star Wars? Of course I am. Am I going to focus on that and only see the original trilogy as the only Star Wars? No. I like the prequels. I like the sequels. I like all this, the single movies, the animated series, the animated stuff, the stuff on Disney Plus. I like it all. I like Skeleton Crew. I like the Acolyte. I liked all of it. The Old Republic, New Republic, Empire, all of it. The Sith, the Jedi, the Grey. I like all of it. I love all of Star Wars. It doesn't matter if it's up or down, what people think of it. I don't care. I love Star Wars. I've always loved Star Wars, and I will forever love Star Wars. That's never going to change, because Star Wars for me is a part of who I am. It's always been a part of my life ever since I was a baby. My parents took me to see Star Wars in the theater while I was still in diapers. And I went and saw Return of the Jedi in the theater. I had a huge collection of Star Wars figures and vehicles and stuff like that. It got taken away from me. So I'm used to stuff in Star Wars being taken away from me and losing stuff that's part of Star Wars. But that doesn't mean I hold the bitterness of that against Star Wars. Because Star Wars was never mine to begin with. It was somebody else's creation that they shared with us. And we were privileged to get Star Wars. We were privileged to get the stories, the hero's journey in that form, to see the concept of the Force and the way that things played out in the original movies and that have expanded beyond that. I'm grateful that I have that all around, because for the longest time, I didn't have that. 16 years I went before I finally got a continuation of the story, and I'm grateful for it, because I could have gone 30, 40 years, and that's when the sequels finally came out. So the more I hear about people disliking Star Wars, the more I'm like, dude, relax. It's Star Wars. It's fun. Stop getting so focused on one aspect of it. Enjoy all of it. There is so much to enjoy. If there's something you don't like, look for the one thing about it that you do like. The fact that you got more Star Wars. That's my concept, the way I think about it. You can't focus on one thing you don't like. You got to focus on that you have so much to both like and dislike. Because think about this. If we had only gotten the original trilogy, where would we be? But we got more than the original trilogy. We have 3 trilogies, plus multiple TV shows, multiple animated shows, multiple video games, novels, comics. There is so much of Star Wars that's out there. So don't focus so much on what you don't like. Focus on what you do like and what you do have, because that's what's really going to come down to it. That's what's going to make you happy. Focusing on what you love about Star Wars. You could spend your entire life hating everything about Star Wars, and what's that's going to get you? Absolutely nothing. But you know what? If you look at what you love about Star Wars, you look at the concepts of it that are brought up, and the theories behind it, and the stories that are told, you're going to be happy, because you're going to get something that's part of escapism that takes you away from the real world. And all of us need a little escape from the real world, and Star Wars does that for us. Whether it be the comics, the movies, the TV shows, the figures, the toys, the Lego sets. I mean, I can literally just be happy that because I can build something like this. I've got a gunk droid right here that I made out of Legos. I'm perfectly happy with that. I'm happy just to be able to hold the Star Wars logo in my hands. I can do this every day. I can hold this Star Wars in my hand. I literally have Star Wars in my hands because it exists due to Lego being inspired by Star Wars and partnering up with them. Now, that's something that I can't get from anything else. So, just whenever you think about Star Wars in and of itself, it's something to be enjoyed. It's not something to fight over. It's not something to bicker about. It's something to enjoy. And if you're able to find someone in your life that loves Star Wars as much as you, that's something that unites not only you, but thousands of fans around the world. Because that's the other unifying truth about Star Wars. It is shared by millions. There's not just a select few that are interested in Star Wars. There are thousands upon millions upon billions of people across the world that love Star Wars, that celebrate it on a daily basis, that go to the movies and see them, that read the books, that build the Lego kits, that collect the figures, that put together the model kits, that cosplay as their favorite characters. I mean, that's more than enough reason to love Star Wars, is that it is a concept and theory that you can get behind and that everybody can share in. It's not a select few that are part of Star Wars. It's not some kind of private club that only a select few that can be part of. It's open to everyone. And that's a wonderful thing to have with Star Wars. So I'm going to wrap it up. Unfortunately, I have to get myself some dinner. So I'm going to wrap up today. Thank you, all of you, for taking part in this. The Lego has a secret disc. It does. That is actually true. I love actually showing that off. It's right here in this part. I'll see if I can show it in there. It's actually the Tentative 4 and the Imperial Star Destroyer, Vader's Imperial Star Destroyer chasing after it. You actually get that in the thing. And I love that aspect about that. I keep hoping that they are going to expand upon this and we're going to get an Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi in the same concept. I hope that happens. I don't know if it will, but I really hope it does. Or they make it so that you get Star Wars and you get A New Hope and Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi. I hope they come up with something like that. I don't know if they will, but I really hope they do. And they do a secret hatch like that for each of them. But built the same set. Awesome, man. I hope send me a picture sometime or post up a video of, like, if you have a collection of Star Wars, definitely post it up on TikTok and tag me in it. If you want to post it on the Reddit page, please do. Like, if any of you who are listening to my voice, if you're a Star Wars fan, post that stuff on your TikTok, post that stuff up and show it and let us share in that, because that's awesome stuff. Oh, you broke it? Oh, well, I'm guessing you dropped it and broke the pieces and stuff like that. You can definitely put it back together. I mean, you have the instructions and stuff like that. The great thing is and I will mention this to people, because when I got this, there were pieces missing. I didn't get all the pieces in this set. There were actually multiple pieces missing, like here from the R and on top of the W here. There were pieces missing, so I actually had to contact Lego, and I was able to order the bits. So if you break a set of Lego, but you actually purchased it, and you have the information to prove that, you can go on Lego's website and reassemble with the pieces that you're missing. Like, usually you just have to go through the instruction booklet and find the pieces that you're missing, and you can get those pieces and you can rebuild the sets. I've actually gotten a lot of sets that either my son dropped or something like that, or he accidentally broke the pieces. And you can go on Lego's website, as long as you have the instruction booklet with the code for the particular piece, you can get those pieces and you can rebuild your sets. So don't ever get frustrated about, that's the thing I see a lot on TikTok, is people accidentally dropping their, like, Millennium Falcon or something like that, and they end up finding that the piece is broken. You can get those pieces restored. You just have to go on Lego's website using the instruction booklet that came with the set. That's why I always hold on to my instruction booklets. I don't always hold on to the boxes and stuff like that, but I always hold on to the instruction booklet. So that way, if I ever decide to pass on the set or it gets broken, I have the instruction booklet to be able to find all the pieces. So thanks for posting up about that, Obi-Wan. Definitely post up any of your pictures and stuff like that, either to TikTok and tag me in it, or if you want to post on our Reddit page. Again, we love all Star Wars. Abby from the Dark Side and myself are the moderators on that. So if you guys want to chat with us on there, away from TikTok, or if you want to direct comments and stuff like that on the videos, I will definitely be posting up highlights of this, and the full thing is going to be loaded up to the link on my profile. So if you have any other questions or things you want to talk about, I'll have this up on my other site. So definitely chat with me there if you like. But thanks for everybody for coming out. Lady Deadpool, thank you for the gift. Unfortunately, I didn't get enough of my goal today to be able to share my collection. I've still got it sitting here. If I ever get to my goal or just my live goal, not my end-all goal of followers, but my live goal. Each time I go live, I have a live goal. So if I reach that goal, then I'll actually share my Star Wars collection on screen. But we'll push that pause button, and we'll do that for the next time. So once again, thanks a lot to everybody who showed up. Thank you for all the likes and the gifts. I really appreciate it. Again, I post the Star Wars facts of the day every day, Monday through Friday, and then I do the live every Sunday. So I will be going live next Sunday with the facts that I post this week. So comment, share as much as you like. I appreciate it. I appreciate all of you for supporting my page and giving me the opportunity and the people to actually talk to about this. I really appreciate it. Thanks so much, and we'll catch you all next week. Thanks a lot. Have a great night. Bye-bye.